you can see, right? Then there are these plugs, right, which are just little screws. And here you want to be, I'm just going to screw them in, and I want to screw them tightly, but not too tightly. There's no, how you're going to say, how do you know? You just don't screw too tight. The reason is if you put them really tight, it deforms. It's very hard to put. This thing sort of expands in one dimension, and it's hard to put it into the rotor. So, and then I'll get the other one. It's very handy to have these nice set of tweezers, because if you have big fingers, particularly, you can't pick these up. There. So, actually, in all seriousness, the best way to not screw them on too tightly is to use a really small screwdriver like this, because there's no way you can turn it this tight. You can't hold it that tightly. So this is perfect. Right. And actually, you guys can pass this one around to look at the way it's loaded. Just don't put your fingers on the windows. You're welcome to hold it. It's not that fragile. So it's hard to see it, but there should be a little bit less material, slightly less, 10 microliters on the right side.
Why do we load the reference a bit less than the sample?
The sample less than the reference.
Yes.
Why do I do that? Because it's important to pick out where the meniscus is when you do the analysis. And so if you put a little bit less in the sample, which is the one you care about, it's easy to see it. I just push it down with this. And you guys can just circulate around so some in the back can come up.
But you just put the buffer in this hole,
right?
Then the sample is the other.
Right.
If you turn around, so you have any, the two directions is this.
It always, when I say right, it's always with the top of the cell facing me this way.
Ah, okay.
That's one of the hardest parts to remember. And if you put it in upside down,
yes,
then you can flip the tube. You can put it, but the way the absorbance system works, it actually is important to have it set up that way. Good.
Is it necessary to have
Air?
Yeah.
No, it's just really hard to avoid it. You know, you can see there's a little bubble on
the top.
Right. It's almost impossible to load.
So the amount of air important?
No. In fact, sometimes, but what they tell you is, I think in the manual sometimes they tell you to load a little bit less, but the thing is, the more volume you have means the longer the path length, right? And what you wanted for this kind of experiment, the longer the column is that it runs through, the more information you get out. So assuming you're not so strapped for sample that it makes a difference that you load 400 versus 420, you might as well load 420 or even 425.
Does it matter if we load some fluorophore material?
I'm sorry, what kind of material?
Fluorophore.
A fluorophore?
Yeah,
Actually, that could be good. If you have like a fluorescein labeled protein or something, or what? Yeah, you can do that. In fact, you can even use the absorbance of that to follow. You can measure the absorbance at like 500 nanometers. Because the monochromator is a monochromator. You can measure the absorbance of colored material. And we actually do a lot of protein DNA, protein RNA work. And often we follow it by monitoring the absorbance of the nucleic acid at 260 nanometers. Okay.